One evening on a main road in Norfolk, Virginia, Captain Denise Harper stands on the side of the road, hands behind her back, feeling cold metal handcuffs bite into her wrists. She is wearing her service dress blue uniform, 4 gold stripes on each sleeve marking her rank. A bronze star among the ribbons covering her chest displays years of naval service in fabric and metal. And a white police officer is telling her she stole it. "Ma'am, this is your last chance," Officer Brian Ellis says, his hand resting on his service weapon. "Tell me where you really got this uniform, and we can resolve this peacefully. Keep lying to me, and you are going to jail for impersonating a military officer." Captain Harper keeps her voice level despite the rage burning in her chest. "Officer Ellis, I have told you multiple times I am Captain Denise Harper, United States Navy. I command the USS Guardian. I have presented my military identification. I have offered you several phone numbers to verify my identity. I am not lying to you. I am a commissioned officer in the United States Navy." Ellis laughs, actually laughs. "Lady, I have been a cop for some time now. I know when someone is running a scam. You expect me to believe you are a Navy captain driving a beat-up Honda wearing a costume you probably got off Amazon?" He steps closer, invading her space. "Real captains do not look like you. Real captains do not drive cars like that. Real captains have security details and official vehicles and people who handle things for them. So I am going to ask you one more time. Where did you get this uniform?" Captain Harper looks him directly in the eye. "I earned it. Years of service. 2 combat deployments. Command of a destroyer squadron. I earned every ribbon on this chest. I earned these rank insignia, and I earned the right to wear this uniform without being questioned by someone who refuses to spend a moment verifying the truth." Her voice gets quieter, more controlled. The voice she uses when giving orders that must be obeyed. "You have my military ID. You have my vehicle registration. You have multiple ways to verify my credentials. Use them or release me. Those are your only 2 legal options. Everything else is you allowing your bias to override your training." For a moment, Ellis looks uncertain, like maybe he is starting to realize he might be wrong. Then his partner pulls up. Officer Maria Lopez steps out of her patrol car, and everything shifts. Ellis turns to Lopez, his confidence returning. "Maria, check this out. Got a woman here in a Navy captain's uniform. Claims she is the real deal, but something is off. I think we have got a stolen valor situation." Lopez walks over, looks at Captain Harper, sees the uniform, sees the perfect military bearing, sees a woman standing with her hands cuffed behind her back, maintaining composure that most civilians could not manage. "Did you verify her credentials?" Lopez asks quietly. "Do not need to. Look at her car. Look at her. You really think she is a captain?" Lopez frowns. "Brian, if she has military ID and she is offering verification, maybe we should just make the call before we go further with this." "I said I am handling it." He turns back to Captain Harper. "Ma'am, I am placing you under arrest for impersonating a military officer. You have the right to remain silent." "Officer Ellis," Captain Harper interrupts, her voice cutting through his Miranda warning like a blade. "Before you finish that sentence, I want you to think very carefully about what you are doing. You are about to arrest a United States Navy captain who is a short distance from the largest naval base in the world. You are about to arrest someone whose entire crew will know about this arrest within moments. You are about to make a decision that will define the rest of your career." She pauses. "Make the phone call. Verify my credentials. It will take little time, or arrest me and face the consequences. Your choice." Ellis stares at her, sees the absolute certainty in her eyes, the complete lack of fear, the command presence that comes from years of leading sailors in peace and war. For a second, he hesitates. Then he finishes the Miranda warning and reaches for her arm to guide her toward his patrol car. What Officer Brian Ellis does not know, what he has no way of knowing, is that a few cars back in the traffic jam his stop has created, a junior naval officer named Lieutenant Kevin Mitchell is sitting in his Honda Civic watching this entire confrontation unfold. Lieutenant Mitchell recognizes that uniform, recognizes those rank insignia, recognizes the woman wearing them because he sees her every single day on the bridge of the USS Guardian. That is his captain being handcuffed. And he is about to make a phone call that changes everything. He pulls out his cell phone, dials the ship, direct line to the command duty officer. The phone rings twice. USS Guardian, Command Duty Officer Lieutenant Carlos Mendoza speaking. Mitchell's voice is calm but urgent. Mendoza, this is Mitchell. Sound general recall. Right now, the captain has been arrested by Norfolk PD on the main road. I need every available sailor at this location in no time. There is a pause, just a heartbeat of hesitation. Sound general recall. Aye, sir. Within moments, the alert goes out across every ship in Destroyer Squadron 15. General recall. All hands report immediately. Soon, hundreds of sailors know something is wrong. Many of them are already moving. Officer Brian Ellis is going to learn what happens when you arrest a Navy captain and her crew finds out. This is that story. Before I tell you what happened next, comment below where you are watching from and hit subscribe because this story shows what happens when hundreds of sailors decide their captain's dignity is worth fighting for. This is the story of how one phone call changed policing forever. To understand why hundreds of sailors mobilize so swiftly, you need to understand who Captain Denise Harper is and how this confrontation started. Let us go back earlier that evening. Captain Denise Harper is a seasoned officer, born in Charleston, South Carolina, raised by a grandmother who worked double shifts as a nursing assistant to keep food on the table. First person in her family to attend college. Not just any college, the United States Naval Academy. She spent years earning every stripe on her sleeve, deployed multiple times, led anti-piracy operations off Somalia, commanded ballistic missile defense missions in the Mediterranean, brought her ship through a typhoon with 0 casualties when other vessels in the same storm lost sailors overboard. She holds a Bronze Star for valor. She has been recommended for admiral. She commands respect from every sailor who has ever served under her. But that evening, she's just trying to get home. She has been on duty since early morning, a long day commanding her destroyer squadron, briefings, training exercises, maintenance reviews, personnel evaluations, the endless work of keeping warships combat ready. She is exhausted thinking about the hot shower waiting at home, about the briefing she has the next morning, about whether she has time to call her grandmother before bed. She is not thinking about traffic stops or police or anything going wrong. Because why would she? She is in uniform. She has valid credentials. She is a short distance from the naval base where thousands of people can verify exactly who she is. She signals to change lanes, checks her mirrors, executes the maneuver perfectly. And that is when she sees the blue lights in her rearview mirror. Officer Brian Ellis has been watching her for a couple of blocks. He is a veteran cop on the Norfolk Police Department, works the evening shift in the area between the naval base and the residential neighborhoods. He noticed her car first, a 10-year-old Honda Civic, modest, slightly dented rear bumper. The kind of car that does not stand out except when the driver does not match the neighborhood. Then he noticed the driver, a black woman wearing what appears to be a military uniform. His instincts tell him something does not add up. Black woman, old car, military uniform. In his mind, those pieces do not fit together the way they should. He follows for another block looking for a reason to pull her over. Then he sees it. Her right tail light. It looks slightly dimmer than the left. Could be burned out. Could be a bad bulb. Could be nothing at all. But it is enough. He hits his lights. Captain Harper sees the flash of blue and sighs. This is not her first traffic stop. It is not even her first traffic stop while in uniform. She signals, pulls over smoothly into a well-lit area near a shopping center, puts the car in park, turns off the engine, hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, window already down. She has done everything exactly right. Officer Ellis approaches from the driver's side, flashlight in hand. Even though there is still plenty of daylight, he shines it directly into her face. "License and registration," he says. No greeting, no explanation for the stop, just a command. Captain Harper keeps her voice professional. "Good evening, officer. May I reach for my wallet?" She is asking permission, being polite, de-escalating from the very first moment. Ellis does not acknowledge the courtesy, just repeats his command. "License and registration. Now." She reaches slowly and deliberately for her bag, removes her military identification card and her vehicle registration, hands them through the window. Officer Ellis takes them, looks at the military ID. The photo matches her face. The name reads Harper, Denise R. The rank clearly shows 06, Captain, United States Navy. But instead of processing this information, instead of recognizing valid credentials from a senior military officer, his brain goes a different direction. This does not look right. She does not look like what he expects a Navy captain to look like. "This yours?" he asks, suspicion clear in his voice. "Yes, sir." "You are a captain?" "Yes, sir. Captain Denise Harper. I command the USS Guardian, Destroyer Squadron 15, stationed at Naval Station Norfolk." She is giving him specific information, ship name, squadron number, base location, everything he needs to verify her identity quickly. He does not verify, only he escalates. "Step out of the vehicle." Captain Harper takes a slow breath. She knows this pattern. She has lived it before. "Officer, may I ask why I am being asked to exit my vehicle?" "Step out of the vehicle now." She complies because she is a black woman being given orders by a white police officer. And she knows exactly how badly this can go if she refuses. She opens the door, steps out, hands visible at all times. Her uniform is immaculate. Service dress blues with ribbons covering her left chest. Bronze Star, Navy Commendation Medal with Combat Fee, Meritorious Service Medal, National Defense Service Medal. Each ribbon represents deployments, operations, achievements earned over her career. Officer Ellis sees the ribbons and, instead of being impressed, instead of recognizing the service they represent, his skepticism deepens. "Is that a real uniform?" he asks. This is the 7th time in Captain Harper's career that someone has questioned whether her uniform is authentic. The 7th time someone has looked at her and assumed fraud instead of service. The 7th time she has had to prove she earned the right to wear what she is wearing. But this time feels different. This time she has had enough. "Yes, officer. This is my service dress blue uniform. I have just come from Naval Station Norfolk, where I have been on duty since early this morning. If you need to verify my credentials, I can provide you with contact information for the base shore patrol, the command duty officer, or my executive officer. Any of them can confirm my identity quickly." She is offering him multiple ways out, multiple paths to de-escalation, multiple opportunities to verify instead of escalate. He takes none of them. "I'm going to need you to prove that is a real uniform. You got orders, official paperwork?" "My deployment orders and command authorization are in my briefcase in the back seat. May I retrieve them?" "Do not move." He reaches for his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I need a supervisor and backup to my location. I have a possible stolen valor situation. Subject is claiming to be a Navy captain, but the circumstances are suspicious, requesting immediate assistance." Captain Harper's hands curl into fists at her sides, but her voice remains calm. "Officer Ellis, I'm offering to verify my credentials through official Navy channels. This will take little time. You do not need backup. You need verification. Please, make the call." He is not listening anymore. He has already decided she is guilty of something. Soon, Officer Maria Lopez arrives as backup. She steps out of her patrol car and immediately senses something wrong with this stop. She sees Captain Harper in full dress uniform, sees the ribbons, sees the bearing, sees a woman who looks every inch a senior military officer. And she sees her partner treating that officer like a criminal. "Brian, what is going on?" she asks quietly when she reaches his side. "Possible stolen valor." She says she is a Navy captain. But look at her car. Look at her. Does she look like a captain to you? Officer Lopez glances at Captain Harper again, sees the uniform, sees the credentials Ellis is holding, sees the military ID that clearly shows rank and photo. "Did you verify with the base?" Lopez asks. "Do not need to verify. I can tell this is wrong." Lopez frowns. "Brian, if she has military ID and she is offering to let you call the base, maybe we should just verify before we take this any further. It will take little time. I said I am handling this." He turns back to Captain Harper, and that is when he makes the statement that ends his career. "Ma'am, this is your last chance. Tell me where you really got this uniform, and we can resolve this peacefully. Keep lying to me, and you are going to jail for impersonating a military officer." Captain Harper's jaw tightens. Her eyes flash with controlled fury. "Officer Ellis, I have told you multiple times I am Captain Denise Harper, United States Navy. I command the USS Guardian. I have presented my military identification. I have offered several phone numbers to verify my identity. I am not lying to you. I am a commissioned officer in the United States Navy." Ellis laughs. It is that laugh that seals everything that happens next. That contemptuous, dismissive, absolutely certain laugh that says he has already made up his mind, and nothing she says will change it. "Lady, I have been a cop for some time. I know when someone is running a scam. You expect me to believe you are a Navy captain driving a beat-up Honda, wearing a costume you probably got off Amazon?" He steps closer. "Real captains do not look like you. Real captains do not drive cars like that. Real captains have security details and official vehicles, and people who handle things for them. So, I am going to ask you one more time, where did you get this uniform?" And that is when Captain Harper delivers the warning he should have heeded. "I earned it. Years of service, 2 combat deployments, command of a destroyer squadron. I earned every ribbon on this chest. I earned these rank insignia. And I earned the right to wear this uniform without being questioned by someone who refuses to spend a moment verifying the truth." Her voice drops lower, colder. "You have my military ID. You have my vehicle registration. You have multiple ways to verify my credentials. Use them or release me. Those are your only 2 legal options. Everything else is you allowing your bias to override your training." Officer Lopez speaks up again. "Brian, seriously, let us just verify. If she is lying, we will know quickly and we proceed with arrest. If she's telling the truth, we avoid a massive problem. Either way, verification is the smart move here." But Ellis is too far committed now. He has made his decision. He is going to arrest her. He is going to prove she is a fraud. He is going to show everyone he was right to be suspicious. Ma'am, I am placing you under arrest for impersonating a military officer. You have the right to remain silent. Officer Ellis, Captain Harper interrupts, and her command voice stops him mid-sentence. Before you finish that sentence, I want you to think very carefully about what you are doing. You are about to arrest a United States Navy captain who is a short distance from the largest naval base in the world. You are about to arrest someone whose entire crew will know about this arrest within moments. You are about to make a decision that will define the rest of your career. She holds his gaze. Make the phone call. Verify my credentials. It will take little time, or arrest me and face the consequences. Your choice. For just a second, Ellis hesitates. He sees the absolute certainty in her eyes, the complete lack of fear. The command presence that does not come from pretending, but from years of actually leading sailors through combat and crisis. But his pride will not let him back down now. He finishes the Miranda warning. He pulls out handcuffs, and he tells Captain Denise Harper to put her hands behind her back. The metal clicks shut around her wrists. And a few cars back in traffic, Lieutenant Kevin Mitchell makes a phone call that is about to bring hundreds of sailors to this exact location. Officer Ellis is guiding Captain Harper toward his patrol car when he hears it. At first, it sounds like distant thunder rumbling on the horizon. Then it gets louder. Engines, dozens of them. Cars, trucks, motorcycles, all moving in the same direction with unmistakable purpose. He stops, turns, looks toward the sound. From the direction of Naval Station Norfolk, vehicles are streaming onto the main road, not speeding, not running red lights, but moving in tight formation, like they have rehearsed this maneuver 1,000 times. They are pulling over, parking along both sides of the street, creating a perimeter around the traffic stop. Doors open, and from every vehicle, sailors emerge. Some in working uniforms with names and ranks stenciled across their chests. Some in dress blues matching Captain Harper's. Some in civilian clothes, but moving with unmistakable military discipline. All of them heading toward the scene. Officer Lopez sees it, and her eyes go wide. "Brian," she says quietly. "Brian, what is happening?" What is happening is that every sailor from the USS Guardian who could reach this location swiftly has just arrived, and they brought friends. Sailors from the USS Fitzgerald, the USS Bainbridge, the USS Sampson, every destroyer in Squadron 15, every ship currently in port at Naval Station Norfolk, officers with gold stripes on their sleeves, enlisted sailors with chevrons on their shoulders, chiefs with anchors, master chiefs with stars above their anchors, junior sailors barely out of boot camp, and senior sailors with decades of sea time. They form a perimeter a safe distance from where Captain Harper stands in handcuffs, not advancing, not threatening, not saying a single word, just standing. Hundreds of sailors in various uniforms and various stages of dress. Hundreds of sets of eyes watching their squadron commander handcuffed on the side of the road. The discipline is perfect. Not one sailor steps out of line. Not one raises their voice. Not one makes an aggressive move toward the police officers. They simply stand at parade rest with hands clasped behind their backs and eyes forward. It is the most intimidating, non-threatening presence Officer Ellis has ever witnessed in his career. Captain Harper sees them and closes her eyes briefly. Her crew came for her, every single one of them. Her executive officer, Commander Robert Hayes, standing at the front. Her operations officer, Lieutenant Commander Emily Park, beside him. Her chief engineer, her weapons officer, her master chief, the junior officer she mentors, The sailors she has led through 2 combat deployments. They all came. Officer Ellis stares at the wall of sailors and his hand moves unconsciously toward his service weapon. Officer Lopez grabs his wrist. "Do not," she says urgently. "Do not even think about it. We need to call this in right now. We need supervisors here immediately." Ellis finds his radio with shaking hands. "Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I need every available supervisor to my location immediately. I have hundreds of military personnel surrounding my traffic stop. They are not being aggressive, but this situation is escalating rapidly. Request immediate command staff response." The dispatcher's voice rises an octave. "Did you say hundreds?" "At least hundreds, maybe more. They're still arriving. I need help here now." Soon, every supervisor on duty in Norfolk PD is rolling toward the scene. The watch commander is on the phone with Naval Station Norfolk. Rear Admiral Thomas Bennett, commander of Destroyer Squadron 15, knows that one of his captains has been arrested, and her entire squadron has mobilized in response, and he is absolutely furious. Officer Lopez walks over to the line of sailors. She identifies Commander Hayes by his rank insignia. "Commander, I am Officer Lopez, Norfolk PD. Can you tell me what is happening here?" Hayes's voice is calm and professional. "Officer Lopez, we received word that our commanding officer, Captain Denise Harper, was being detained. We responded to provide support and ensure her safety. We are not here to interfere with law enforcement. We are here to witness and document what happens to our captain. There are hundreds of you." "Yes, ma'am." "Captain Harper commands our squadron. When she needs us, we respond. On all of us." Lopez looks at the faces, sees the discipline, sees the controlled fury, sees hundreds of sailors who are following orders not to escalate, but who are absolutely not backing down. "Commander, did you coordinate this response? How did you get so many people here so quickly?" Hayes shakes his head slightly. "Officer Lopez, we did not coordinate anything. Someone sounded general recall. Every sailor who heard that alarm and could respond did. Nobody ordered them to come to this specific location. They just knew their captain was in trouble. And they came." He pauses. "That is what military culture means, officer. We do not leave our people behind. When one of us needs help, we show up every single time." Lopez walks back to her partner. "Brian, we need to release her right now before this gets any worse. I am not releasing someone just because they brought a crowd. They brought hundreds of sailors from a naval base, hundreds of trained military personnel who responded to an emergency recall swiftly, with perfect discipline. Does that sound like the kind of response a fraud could generate? Does that sound like someone pretending to be a captain?" She grabs his arm. "She is telling the truth, Brian. She is really a captain. And you just arrested her for wearing her own uniform. We need to fix this immediately before it becomes an even bigger disaster than it already is. But it is already too late for that, because news helicopters are overhead now, because every single one of those hundreds of sailors has a cell phone. And the video is already uploading because the watch commander is on the phone with the base, and the conversation is not going well. Captain Olivia Santos, Norfolk PD watch commander, is in her office speaking with Rear Admiral Thomas Bennett. "Admiral, we are working to de-escalate the situation right now. If there has been a misunderstanding..." Admiral Bennett's voice is ice cold. "Captain Santos, there is no misunderstanding. Your officer arrested Captain Denise Harper, a decorated combat veteran with years of service, a Bronze Star recipient, the commanding officer of the USS Guardian. He arrested her for wearing her own uniform after she presented valid military identification and offered multiple ways to verify her credentials." He pauses to let that sink in. "Your officer watched her credentials get verified at a security checkpoint earlier. I have the traffic camera footage. He saw her military ID scanned and approved. Then he followed her, pulled her over for a questionable traffic violation, and arrested her for stolen valor, despite her offering verification through official Navy channels. Admiral, if our officer made an error in judgment, this was not an error in judgment. This was racial profiling. Your officer saw a black woman in a military uniform and decided she must be committing fraud. He refused to verify because verification would have contradicted his assumptions. And now you have hundreds of sailors standing witness to that injustice. His voice gets harder. Release her immediately. Uncuff her. Apologize and pull your officers back before this becomes a national incident. You have little time before I call the Secretary of the Navy and the national media. Your choice. Captain Santos makes the call. Unit 47, this is Watch Commander Santos. Release the subject immediately. Remove the handcuffs. Clear the scene. That is a direct order. Officer Ellis receives the order, and his face goes pale. He walks over to Captain Harper. His hands are shaking as he reaches for his handcuff key. Ma'am, there has been a misunderstanding. You are free to go. Captain Harper turns so he can remove the cuffs. The metal falls away and she rubs her wrists where the restraints left angry red marks on her skin. She does not say anything for a moment, just looks at Officer Ellis with an expression that makes him want to disappear. Then she speaks. Her voice is quiet, controlled, but it carries to every sailor standing in that perimeter. Officer Ellis, you arrested me for the crime of wearing my own uniform while black. You refused to verify my credentials despite having multiple resources available. You questioned my service, my rank, and my integrity based solely on your assumptions about what a Navy captain should look like. She steps closer. Those hundreds of sailors you see standing behind me, they did not come here to threaten you. They came here because when you attack one of us, you face all of us. That is military culture. That is what loyalty means. We do not leave our people behind, ever. She takes her military ID and registration back from his hand. You had a chance for verification between you and a career-ending mistake. You chose not to use it. Remember that choice, Officer Ellis, because it is going to define the rest of your life. She turns toward her car. The wall of hundreds of sailors parts smoothly, creating a clear path, maintaining perfect formation. Commander Hayes steps forward and salutes sharply. Captain, all personnel accounted for. Squadron is secure, awaiting your orders. Captain Harper returns the salute. Stand down, XO. Return all personnel to normal operations, and thank them for me, all of them. Aye, Captain. It was an honor. Hayes turns to address the assembled sailors. All hands return to base. Resume normal operations. Move out in good order. Make the Navy proud. The sailors disperse with the same precision they arrived with, forming up by unit, moving to vehicles, departing the scene in perfect military order. Soon the road is clear, except for the 2 police cars, Captain Harper's Honda, and many civilians who witnessed the entire incident with phones recording every moment. Officer Ellis stands alone next to his patrol car, watching the last sailors depart. Officer Lopez walks over to him. Brian, you just arrested a Navy captain. He does not respond. Hundreds of sailors mobilize swiftly. He still does not respond. This is going to be everywhere by morning. Your career is over. You know that, right? He finally speaks. I thought she was lying. I really thought she was running a scam. Lopez shakes her head sadly. You thought that because you could not imagine a black woman earning those rank insignia. That is not instinct, Brian. That is bias, and it just cost you everything. Captain Harper gets back in her Honda, starts the engine, adjusts her rearview mirror. In the reflection, she can see Officer Ellis standing there looking lost and defeated. She drives away, Her hands are steady on the wheel, but her heart is racing. Years of service, years of proving herself, years of earning respect one decision at a time. And one officer almost erased all of it in a short time based on nothing but his biased assumptions. But her crew responded. Hundreds of sailors dropped everything and came when she needed them. That is the culture she has built over her career. That is the legacy that matters. And that is the culture she is going to protect by making sure this incident leads to real systemic change. Because if it happened to her, a captain with hundreds of sailors to respond, how many other service members have experienced this with nobody coming to help? She is going to find out, and she is going to fix it. Later that evening, the video has millions of views across multiple platforms. Someone filmed the moment Officer Ellis put Captain Harper in handcuffs. Someone else filmed the arrival of hundreds of sailors appearing like a military deployment on a civilian street. Someone filmed Commander Hayes' crisp salute and the perfectly disciplined withdrawal. But the most viral video is the one that captured the confrontation itself. The audio is crystal clear. Officer Ellis laughing and saying, "Real captains do not look like you." Captain Harper responding, "I earned every ribbon on this chest." Ellis insisting, "You expect me to believe you are a Navy captain driving a beat-up Honda wearing a costume you probably got off Amazon?" Harper warning him, "You are about to make a decision that will define the rest of your career." And then the click of handcuffs closing around the wrists of a decorated combat veteran. That video becomes the centerpiece of a national conversation about racial profiling, military service, and the assumptions people make about who deserves respect. The hashtag real captains do not look like you trends for days on end. Thousands of service members, especially black officers and women officers, post photos in uniform with their own stories of being questioned, doubted, or accused of wearing fake credentials. A black Army colonel posts a photo of himself in full dress uniform with years of ribbons and rights. Been stopped in uniform several times. Always the same question. Is this real? Every single time, I am black first and colonel second in their eyes. A Latina Air Force major posts. Pulled over while driving home from base in flight suit. Officer asked if I was going to a costume party. I had just landed an F-16, but sure, costume party. A black female Marine lieutenant colonel posts. Years of service, deployed multiple times, still get asked if my uniform is from a surplus store. The exhaustion is real. The stories pour in, hundreds of them, thousands. A tidal wave of service members sharing experiences they have kept quiet for years because who would believe them? Who would care? But now people are believing. Now people care. Because Captain Harper's arrest was not an isolated incident. It was a visible example of an invisible pattern. Norfolk Police Chief Edward Thompson is in an emergency meeting at City Hall that runs late into the night. Present at the table are the city manager James Whitaker, Mayor Catherine Mills, City Attorney David Cohen, and a very angry Rear Admiral Thomas Bennett, who drove from the base specifically to attend this meeting. Admiral Bennett speaks first. "Chief Thompson, I need you to understand something. Captain Harper is not just any officer. She commands the USS Guardian, a guided missile destroyer with a crew of hundreds of personnel and a weapons system capable of launching Tomahawk cruise missiles. She has conducted anti-piracy operations that protected international shipping lanes in the Gulf of Aden. She has led ballistic missile defense missions that protected millions of people from potential threats. She brought her ship through a Category 4 typhoon with 0 casualties when other ships in the same storm had sailors swept overboard." He pauses to let the weight of that settle. "She holds a Bronze Star for valor in combat. The citation describes how she personally coordinated fire support for ground forces under attack, making split-second decisions under fire that saved lives. She holds a Navy Commendation Medal with Combat 5 for leading her crew through hostile action. She has been recommended for promotion to Rear Admiral. Another pause, longer this time. And one of your officers handcuffed her on the side of the road for wearing her own uniform. He laughed at her credentials. He told her real captains do not look like her. He refused multiple offers to verify her identity through official channels. He chose to arrest rather than spend a moment making a phone call. The room is absolutely silent. So before we discuss disciplinary action, or policy changes, or public statements, I want to know one thing. Is this a pattern or an anomaly? Because if one of your officers can look at a captain in full-dress uniform with valid military ID and decide she must be committing fraud, that tells me there is a systemic problem in how your department trains officers to recognize bias. Chief Thompson has been dreading this question because he already knows the answer. He spent hours with his Internal Affairs Commander, Amanda Lopez, going through Officer Ellis's complete service record. Every traffic stop, every detention, every search, every arrest. Data laid out in spreadsheets that tell a damning story. He slides a folder across the table to Admiral Bennett. Admiral, we have completed a preliminary review of Officer Ellis's service record. The pattern is clear and it is disturbing. Admiral Bennett opens the folder, starts reading. His expression gets harder with every page. The numbers are brutal. Officer Brian Ellis, years on the Norfolk Police Department, hundreds of documented traffic stops. The stop rate roughly matches demographic distribution, but outcomes tell a completely different story. White drivers stopped by Ellis received warnings most of the time. Only a small percentage received citations. Few searches total. 0 arrests. Black drivers stopped by Ellis received warnings less often. Many received citations. Numerous vehicle searches. Several arrests. The disparities are staggering. Black drivers were far more likely to have their vehicles searched. Black drivers were the only ones ever arrested during traffic stops. And when you examine the success rate of those searches, the bias becomes even more obvious. Many searches of black drivers. Few found any contraband. A low hit rate. Few searches of white drivers. Most found contraband. A high hit rate. If Officer Ellis had legitimate probable cause for his searches, those numbers should be reversed. A high hit rate means you are searching based on real evidence. A low hit rate means you are searching based on hunches, assumptions, and racial bias. A low hit rate means you are searching people because of the color of their skin. Admiral Bennett reads through the data twice. Then he looks up at Chief Thompson. How many complaints has this officer received? Internal Affairs Commander Amanda Lopez answers that question. Several formal complaints over the years, Admiral. All from black citizens. All alleging racial profiling, excessive questioning during routine stops, or differential treatment compared to white drivers in similar situations. And what happened to those complaints? Lopez takes a breath. This is the part that makes the department look worst. All were investigated and found not sustained. Insufficient evidence to prove or disprove the allegations. Why insufficient evidence? Because we investigated each complaint in isolation, Admiral. We looked at whether the specific stop was legally justified, whether the officer had reasonable suspicion for the initial contact, whether proper procedures were followed during the interaction. We treated each incident as a standalone event. She pulls out another file. But when you put them together, when you look at the pattern across multiple incidents, the bias becomes undeniable. We had multiple people telling us the same story over the years. Multiple people saying this officer profiles black drivers. And we found a way to dismiss every single complaint because we were looking at trees instead of the forest. Admiral Bennett leans back in his chair. So multiple people told you this officer was engaging in racially biased policing? And you investigated each complaint in a way designed to find no evidence, rather than in a way designed to find the truth. That is an accurate assessment. Yes, sir. The mayor speaks up for the first time. Admiral Bennett, I want to be clear that this is unacceptable. What happened to Captain Harper is unacceptable. The pattern we are seeing in Officer Ellis's record is unacceptable. And the way we have handled complaints in the past is unacceptable. We are going to fix this, all of it. How? Admiral Bennett asks bluntly. Immediate termination of Officer Ellis, public accountability, comprehensive review of our complaint investigation procedures so we catch patterns instead of dismissing them, and coordination protocols with Naval Station Norfolk. So, if military personnel are detained, you are notified immediately and we verify credentials before making any arrests. Chief Thompson adds to that list. We are also implementing mandatory bias training for every officer, body camera review with a focus on traffic stop disparities, monthly data analysis looking for patterns across all officers, not just when someone files a complaint, and a civilian oversight board with real authority to investigate and recommend discipline. Admiral Bennett considers this. That is a good start, but I want something else. I want a formal protocol that anytime military personnel in uniform or with military ID are detained, your officers are required to verify through official military channels before proceeding with arrest. No exceptions, no discretion. Mandatory verification. We can do that, Chief Thompson says. And I want that protocol named after Captain Harper. So every time one of your officers has to follow it, they remember what happens when you let bias override evidence. Mayor Mills nods. The Harper Protocol. We will implement it immediately, not just Norfolk, Admiral Bennett says. I'm going to recommend this protocol to the Secretary of the Navy for implementation at every military installation in the country. What happened that evening should never happen to another service member, ever. He stands. Chief Thompson, you have a short time to terminate Officer Ellis and announce the Harper Protocol. After that, I am holding a press conference. Either I am announcing that Norfolk has taken decisive action and implemented reforms, or I am announcing that Norfolk failed to act and the Navy is implementing protective measures for all personnel when they leave base. Your choice. The door closes behind him. Mayor Mills looks at Chief Thompson. Make it happen. Chief Thompson makes it happen quickly. A couple of days after the arrest, Officer Brian Ellis sits across from Chief Thompson in a conference room at police headquarters. He has a union representative with him now, a lawyer named Thomas Burke, who specializes in defending officers in disciplinary proceedings. Also present are Internal Affairs Commander Amanda Lopez, the department's legal counsel Patricia Morrison, and a court reporter documenting every word. Chief Thompson slides the termination letter across the table. Officer Ellis, effective immediately, you are terminated from the Norfolk Police Department for cause. The termination is based on 4 specific violations of department policy. He reads from the letter. Violation 1. Detention and arrest of an individual after valid government identification was presented without attempting available verification procedures, as required by Department General Orders. Violation 2. Failure to follow department policy requiring reasonable suspicion, based on specific articulable facts, rather than subjective assumptions or generalized suspicion. Violation 3. Pattern of racially disparate enforcement demonstrated through years of traffic stop data, showing statistically significant differences in outcomes for black drivers versus white drivers. Stop by you. Violation 4. Conduct unbecoming an officer that brought substantial discredit to the Norfolk Police Department and undermined public trust in law enforcement. Ellis stares at the letter. His face has gone pale. Burke, His attorney jumps in immediately. Chief Thompson, my client disputes these allegations. Officer Ellis was exercising reasonable caution during what he believed to be a suspicious situation. He had legitimate concerns about the authenticity of the credentials presented. Disparate impact in traffic. Stop outcomes does not prove discriminatory intent. This termination is excessive, and we will be filing a grievance with the police union demanding arbitration. Chief Thompson does not even look at Burke. He keeps his eyes on Ellis. Officer Ellis, I have watched the video multiple times. I have read the transcript of your interaction with Captain Harper. I have reviewed your traffic stop data going back years. I've read every complaint filed against you, and I have looked at the training records showing you were taught how to verify military credentials and chose not to use that training. He leans forward. So, let me be very clear about something. You did not arrest Captain Harper because you had legitimate concerns about credential authenticity. You arrested her because you saw a black woman in a military uniform, and your brain decided that could not be real. You saw her 10-year-old Honda and decided a real captain would not drive that car. You looked at her and saw someone who did not match your mental image of what military leadership looks like. And when she offered you multiple ways to verify her identity, when she gave you the direct number to the shore patrol, when she told you exactly how to confirm she was telling the truth, you refused. Not because verification was not possible, but because accepting that she was really a captain would mean admitting your assumptions were wrong. He slides another document across the table. The traffic stop data analysis. You have searched many black drivers over the years. You found contraband in few of those searches. That is a low hit rate. You have searched few white drivers. You found contraband in most of those searches. High hit rate. Those numbers do not lie, Officer Ellis. They show that when you search black drivers, you are doing it based on bias, not evidence. When you search white drivers, you are doing it based on actual probable cause. Ellis finally speaks. His voice is quiet, defensive. Chief, I was just doing my job. Stolen valor is a real problem. People do impersonate military officers. I thought I was protecting the integrity of military service by investigating someone I believed was committing fraud. Chief Thompson picks up his phone, plays a video clip. It is body cam footage from the traffic stop, Ellis's own camera. The audio plays clearly in the conference room. Ellis's voice, "Real captains do not look like you. Real captains do not drive cars like that. Real captains have security details and official vehicles." Chief Thompson pauses the video. That is not an officer investigating possible fraud, Ellis. That is an officer telling a black woman she cannot be who she says she is because she does not match his racist stereotypes about what military officers look like. You did not question her credentials because you had evidence they were fake. You questioned them because she is black. He closes the folder. The termination stands. You have the right to file a grievance. The union can request arbitration. But the video is public. The data is documented. The national media is covering this story, and the Navy is demanding accountability. This termination will be upheld at every level of review. Burke tries one more time. Chief Thompson, Officer Ellis has years of service, no prior disciplinary action, generally positive performance reviews. One incident, however regrettable, should not end a career. We are asking for suspension and retraining instead of termination. One incident, Commander Lopez says, speaking for the first time. We have documented evidence of years of racially biased policing, many unjustified searches. Several arrests of black drivers for minor violations that white drivers were not arrested for. Multiple formal complaints that we failed to properly investigate. Captain Harper's arrest was not one incident. It was the incident that finally forced us to see a pattern we should have caught years ago. She looks directly at Ellis. Officer Ellis, you profiled a decorated war veteran. You handcuffed someone who earned a Bronze Star for valor. You arrested a woman who commands a warship capable of launching cruise missiles and brought that ship safely home through a typhoon. You did all of that because you could not imagine a black woman earning those achievements. That is not one bad decision. That is a fundamental failure of character and judgment, and it disqualifies you from wearing this badge. The meeting ends. Officer Ellis walks out of Norfolk Police Headquarters for the last time as an employee. Outside, news cameras are waiting. Officer Ellis, do you have any statement about your termination? Officer Ellis, do you want to apologize to Captain Harper? Officer Ellis, do you believe you were treated fairly? He keeps his head down, says nothing, gets in his car, and drives away. The footage of his silent departure will be added to the countless videos already circulating about the incident. That afternoon, Norfolk PD issues a public statement. Today, the Norfolk Police Department terminated Officer Brian Ellis for violations of department policy, following an incident in which he arrested Captain Denise Harper, a United States Navy officer, without proper cause. Our investigation revealed a pattern of conduct inconsistent with our commitment to bias-free policing and professional law enforcement. We have also implemented the Harper Protocol requiring mandatory verification of military credentials before any detention or arrest of military personnel. This protocol will ensure that service members are treated with the respect and dignity they have earned through their service to our country. We apologize to Captain Harper for the treatment she received. Her service and sacrifice deserve recognition, not suspicion. We are committed to ensuring this never happens again. The statement is carefully worded, acknowledges wrongdoing without admitting liability, promises reform without admitting systemic failure. It satisfies nobody. The Navy issues its own statement soon after. The United States Navy acknowledges the swift action taken by Norfolk Police Department in response to the unlawful arrest of Captain Denise Harper. However, one termination does not address the systemic issues that allowed this incident to occur. We are working with the Department of Defense to implement comprehensive protocols, ensuring all military personnel are protected from similar treatment at every installation nationwide. Captain Harper is a distinguished officer who has served with honor for her career. The fact that she was subjected to this treatment while in uniform is unacceptable. The Navy will not tolerate discrimination against our personnel, and we expect civilian law enforcement agencies to treat all service members with appropriate respect, regardless of race, gender, or any other characteristic. We thank the Norfolk community for their support of Captain Harper and the hundreds of sailors who responded to ensure her safety. Their disciplined response exemplifies the values of the United States Navy. The statement is less diplomatic, more direct. It names the problem as discrimination and demands systemic change, not just individual accountability. Within a day, the story reaches national news. CNN Navy captain arrested while in uniform. Officer fired after investigation reveals pattern of racial profiling. MSNBC, hundreds of sailors mobilized when their captain is arrested, forcing police accountability. Even Fox News covers it. Decorated war veteran arrested by police. Navy demands reforms to protect service members. The political right and left disagree on many things, but both sides agree on this. Arresting a Bronze Star recipient for wearing her own uniform is wrong. Conservative veterans groups issue statements supporting Captain Harper and praising the Navy's response. Progressive civil rights organizations issue statements demanding the Harper Protocol be adopted nationwide and calling for broader police reform. The story has something for everyone: military service, racial justice, police accountability, institutional reform. And at the center of it all is Captain Denise Harper, who has barely spoken publicly since the incident. She has been working, commanding her ship, leading her squadron, doing her job like nothing happened. Because in her mind, the arrest was just another obstacle to overcome, another challenge to face, another fight to win. And she is about to take that fight to the highest level. Several months after the arrest, Captain Denise Harper sits in the Rayburn House office building in Washington, D.C. The House Armed Services Committee has convened a hearing on military-civilian law enforcement coordination and service member protection. Captain Harper is not just a witness. She is the reason the hearing exists. The committee room is packed beyond capacity. Every seat filled, people standing along the walls, journalists crammed into the press gallery, C-SPAN cameras broadcasting live. On the committee dais sit members of Congress from both parties. Behind Captain Harper sit rows of military officers in dress uniforms, senior enlisted leaders, veterans organization representatives, civil rights advocates, and in the back row, trying not to draw attention, sit sailors from the USS Guardian. They took leave to be here, drove through the night from Norfolk. They want to witness their captain make history. Committee Chairman William Hargrove of Texas gavels the hearing to order. This hearing will come to order. Today we examine the interaction between civilian law enforcement and military personnel, particularly incidents where service members have been detained, searched, or arrested while in uniform or presenting military credentials. Our lead witness is Captain Denise Harper, United States Navy, who experienced such an incident. He pauses. Before we begin, I want to note for the record that Captain Harper did not seek this hearing. She did not request to testify. She was subpoenaed by this committee because we believe her experience and her expertise are essential to understanding how we can better protect the men and women who serve our country. Captain Harper, thank you for your service, and thank you for your willingness to share your story with us today. Captain Harper sits in her service dress blue uniform, the same uniform she was wearing when she was arrested. The ribbons are the same, the rank insignia is the same, but something about her presence is different. She is not a victim telling a trauma story. She is a commanding officer delivering a briefing. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for inviting me to testify. What happened to me was wrong, but it was not unique. It was not unusual, and it was not the first time. It was simply the first time it happened on camera with hundreds of witnesses. She opens a folder. I would like to walk this committee through the incident, then through the data I have collected from other service members, and finally through specific policy recommendations that can prevent this from happening to anyone else. For the next while, she describes the traffic stop in methodical detail, the initial stop for a questionable tail light, the presentation of credentials, Officer Ellis's skepticism, his refusal to verify, his statement that real captains do not look like her, the handcuffs, the arrival of her crew, the release. She keeps her voice professional throughout. No emotion, just facts. But the facts are damning enough without embellishment. Mr. Chairman, I presented valid military identification. I stated my name, rank, and command. I offered Officer Ellis several phone numbers to verify my identity: Shore Patrol, Command Duty Officer, my Executive Officer. Any of those calls would have taken little time and would have confirmed everything I told him. He refused all options. Instead, he arrested me for impersonating a military officer. The charge was false. The arrest was unlawful. And it happened because Officer Ellis looked at me and decided I could not be who I said I was. based on what I look like. Representative Isabella Cruz from California asks the first question. Captain Harper, you mentioned this was not the first time you had been questioned about your credentials. Can you elaborate? Yes, ma'am. The Norfolk incident was the 7th time in my career that someone questioned whether my uniform was authentic. The first time was early in her career when I was a newly commissioned ensign. Military police stopped me entering a base and demanded I prove I was really a naval officer. They made me recite my service number, my unit assignment, my commanding officer's name, kept me at the gate for some time. She continues through the list. Each incident, each time someone saw her uniform and assumed fraud. The common thread in all 7 incidents, Representative, is that the person questioning me made assumptions based on my appearance, rather than examining the evidence in front of them. They saw a black woman in a military uniform and their first thought was that something must be wrong, that I must be pretending, that real officers do not look like me. Representative Jamal Wright from Virginia asks about the crew response. Captain, hundreds of sailors arrived at the scene swiftly. That kind of coordination and speed is remarkable. How did they mobilize so quickly? Captain Harper allows herself a small smile. Representative Wright, my sailors can take a destroyer from cold iron to combat readiness in record time. We can launch cruise missiles, conduct search and rescue, and coordinate with allied forces across hemispheres, getting hundreds of people to a location a short distance from base. She pauses. Sir, that is Tuesday for us. The room erupts in laughter. Even some of the more serious committee members crack smiles. But her expression becomes serious again. Representative, I want to emphasize something important about that response. My crew did not mobilize to threaten law enforcement. They did not come armed. They did not make aggressive moves. They did not violate any laws. They came because they believed their commanding officer needed them, and they responded the way they are trained to respond to emergencies. In the military, we have a core principle. We do not leave our people behind. When someone is in trouble, you go immediately. You do not calculate the cost. You do not worry about personal consequences. You respond. That is what Lieutenant Kevin Mitchell did when he made that phone call. That is what hundreds of sailors did when they got in their vehicles and drove to the scene. They took a risk. They could have faced disciplinary action for participating in an unauthorized mobilization. They could have been accused of interfering with law enforcement. But they saw their captain in handcuffs and they made a choice. Loyalty over caution. Service over self-interest. That is military culture at its best. Representative Linda Park from Washington State asks the question that cuts to the heart of everything. Captain Harper, you have collected data from other service members about similar experiences. What did you find? Captain Harper pulls out a thick document. Representative Park, after my arrest became public, I was contacted by hundreds of service members sharing their own stories. I formalized the data collection through a survey distributed to active duty personnel across all branches. I received responses from many officers representing all services, all ranks, and diverse demographics. She reads the results. A high percentage of black officers reported being questioned about their credentials or rank while in uniform at least once during their careers. Many reported multiple incidents. Many reported differential treatment compared to white officers in similar situations. She looks up at the committee. This is not about one bad officer in Norfolk, Virginia. This is about systemic bias that treats service members of color as suspects before patriots. We volunteer to serve this country. We earn our ranks through years of hard work and sacrifice. We deploy to combat zones. We lead soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines. We put our lives on the line. and we are still questioned about whether we deserve to wear the uniform. Because we do not match someone's stereotype of what military leadership looks like. The room is absolutely silent. Chairman Hargrove asks the final question. Captain Harper, what specific recommendations would you make to this committee? She has been preparing for this question. Mr. Chairman, I recommend 4 specific actions. First, mandate coordination protocols between all military installations and local law enforcement. Direct communication channels. Immediate verification procedures when military personnel are detained. Training for civilian officers on recognizing military credentials and rank structure. Second, require comprehensive data collection and reporting. Every incident where military personnel are detained by civilian law enforcement must be reported to the Department of Defense, Inspector General. That data should be analyzed for patterns. Installations with high incident rates should be flagged for intervention. Law enforcement agencies showing patterns of profiling military personnel should face consequences, including loss of federal funding. Third, create clear accountability mechanisms. If a law enforcement agency repeatedly profiles military personnel, there must be real consequences. If individual officers show patterns of bias, they should be terminated. Good intentions are not enough. We need systems that identify bias and correct it before it becomes another viral video. Fourth, extend these protections beyond active duty personnel to veterans and reservists. The uniform should not only be respected when someone is currently serving. If you earned the right to wear it, you should be able to wear it without fear of being treated as a criminal. She closes her folder. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I do not want another officer to experience what I experienced. I do not want another crew to have to mobilize hundreds of personnel to get their captain released from unlawful arrest. I want a system where military credentials are respected, where verification happens before handcuffs, where service members are treated with the dignity they have earned. That is not complicated. That is basic respect. And if we cannot provide that to the people who volunteer to defend this country, then we failed at something fundamental. The hearing room erupts in applause. Chairman Hargrove allows it to continue for several seconds before gaveling for order. Captain Harper, thank you for your testimony. This committee will take your recommendations seriously. You have given us a clear roadmap for protecting service members from the kind of treatment you experienced. Now, it is our job to turn those recommendations into law. Months later, Congress passes the Service Member Dignity and Protection Act. The vote is overwhelming in the House and the Senate. It contains every recommendation Captain Harper made, and it is named in her honor. The Service Member Dignity and Protection Act becomes law the following year. President Sophia Bennett signs the bill in a ceremony at the White House. Behind her stand the bill's sponsors from both parties, military leaders from all service branches, veterans organization representatives, and Captain Denise Harper in her dress blues. The president speaks before signing. This legislation does something very simple. It says that when you wear the uniform of the United States military, when you present credentials showing you have earned the right to serve this country, you deserve to be treated with respect, not suspicion, not doubt. Respect. She gestures to Captain Harper. Captain Harper was arrested for the crime of wearing her own uniform while black. An officer looked at her and decided she could not be who she said she was. Decided that someone who looks like her could not command a warship, could not hold a Bronze Star, could not have earned her distinguished service. He was wrong, and his wrongness was caught on camera for the world to see. But Captain Harper did not just demand justice for herself. She demanded systemic change for every service member who comes after her. She testified before Congress. She worked with police departments. She collected data. She built the framework for the reforms we are signing into law today. That is leadership. That is service. And that is the America we should all be fighting for. President Bennett signs the bill with multiple pens. One goes to Chairman Hargrove. One goes to the lead Senate sponsor. One goes to the Secretary of Defense. And one goes to Captain Denise Harper. She accepts the pen, holds it for a moment, thinks about the journey from handcuffs on the road to this moment in the White House. From arrest to federal law. That is how fast change can happen when people refuse to accept injustice. The Service Member Dignity and Protection Act has 4 major components. Component 1. The Harper Protocol becomes mandatory at every military installation in the United States, and it oversees bases where American law enforcement has jurisdiction. The protocol requires that any time military personnel in uniform or presenting military credentials are detained by civilian law enforcement, the installation commanding officer must be notified quickly. The installation has authority to demand immediate verification through official military channels and can request release to military jurisdiction if the detention appears to be based on bias rather than legitimate cause. Component 2. Comprehensive data collection and public reporting. Every incident where military personnel are detained, searched, or arrested by civilian law enforcement must be reported to the Department of Defense Inspector General within a short time. That data gets compiled regularly and published publicly. Installations with high incident rates get flagged. Law enforcement agencies showing patterns of profiling military personnel get investigated. Component 3. Federal funding consequences. States and municipalities receiving federal law enforcement grants are required to implement coordination protocols with nearby military installations. Agencies that fail to comply or that show documented patterns of discriminating against military personnel face progressive loss of federal funding. First offense brings a warning and mandatory corrective action. Second offense brings a percentage funding cut. Third offense brings complete loss of federal support. Component 4. Expansion of protections. The protections do not just cover active duty personnel. They extend to reservists, National Guard members, and veterans who earn the right to wear military uniforms. If you served, your credentials deserve respect. Period. The law goes into effect after signing, giving agencies time to implement the required protocols. Within the first year, many military installations across the United States have Harper Protocol coordination agreements in place with local law enforcement. The results are immediate and dramatic. First-year data shows transformation. Incidents where military personnel in uniform are detained by civilian law enforcement, all resolved through verification protocols within an average of short time. 0 arrests, 0 use of force, 0 complaints of mistreatment. Compare that to the previous period before the protocol existed. More incidents, longer resolution time, several arrests, later dismissed. Use of force incidents, formal complaints. The Harper Protocol cut incidents and resolved every remaining incident without arrest or violence. Police departments near military bases start sending officers to installations for cross-training. They learn to recognize rank insignia. They understand the difference between Navy and Army ranks, between enlisted and officer insignia. They learn that a Navy captain is equivalent to an Army colonel, not to a police captain. They meet the people wearing those uniforms. They tour the ships and the bases. They see the responsibilities these officers carry. They watch sailors conduct training exercises with precision that makes civilian emergency response look chaotic by comparison. It is harder to assume someone is impersonating a naval officer when you have stood on the bridge of their destroyer and watched them command hundreds of personnel with calm authority during a simulated combat scenario. The training becomes reciprocal. Military police attend civilian law enforcement seminars. They learn about challenges local police face, the differences between military justice and civilian criminal law, when to cooperate with civilian investigations, and when to invoke military jurisdiction. Bridges get built, communication improves, mutual respect develops. Norfolk becomes the national model that other cities study and emulate. A couple of years after Captain Harper's arrest, Norfolk Police Department releases comprehensive impact data. Racial disparities in traffic stop outcomes have dropped significantly. Not eliminated because systemic bias does not disappear quickly, but dramatically, measurably improved. Traffic stops resulting in searches are down overall. When searches do occur, the hit rate is up, meaning officers are searching based on actual evidence rather than bias and hunches. Complaints alleging racial profiling have dropped. Community trust surveys show significant increases, especially in communities of color. People report feeling safer during interactions with police, more willing to call for help, more confident that complaints will be taken seriously. Officer retention has improved. Morale is up. Recruitment is stronger. Chief Thompson credits 3 specific changes that made the difference. Change 1. Public data transparency. When your stop rates and search rates get published regularly for everyone to analyze, you think twice before letting bias drive decisions. Officers know their patterns are being watched. That changes behavior. Change 2. Pattern analysis with real consequences. The department doesn't wait for complaints anymore. They proactively review every officer's data monthly. Disparities get flagged immediately. First time brings counseling and retraining. Second time brings reassignment to positions with less independent authority. Third time brings termination. No exceptions. No union protection for repeated bias. Change 3. Cultural shift from the top. Chief Thompson makes it clear in every briefing, every training session, every public statement that bias-free policing is not optional. It is not a goal to work toward. It is a requirement for employment. Officers who cannot meet that standard need different careers. The Norfolk model spreads to other cities with significant military populations. San Diego implements similar protocols. So does Jacksonville, Florida. Colorado Springs near the Air Force Academy. San Antonio, near multiple Army and Air Force bases. The Hampton Roads region near multiple Navy installations. Over the next few years, many cities have adopted comprehensive coordination protocols, modeled on Norfolk's Harper Protocol implementation. But the impact extends beyond military police interactions. The data transparency and accountability mechanisms that Norfolk built for the Harper Protocol get applied to all policing, not just interactions with service members. If requiring officers to document reasons for stopping military personnel reduces bias, why not require the same documentation for all stops? If publishing data on searches of military personnel creates accountability, why not publish data on all searches? If pattern analysis catches bias against service members, why not use pattern analysis to catch all bias? Portland, Oregon becomes the first city to take that step. They implement universal verification and documentation requirements. Any stop, any search, any detention requires specific, articulable facts documented in writing and reviewed by supervisors. Patterns of racial disparity trigger immediate intervention. First-year results from Portland mirror what Norfolk saw with the Harper Protocol. Traffic stops down because officers stop making stops based on hunches and assumptions. Searches down because documentation requirements force officers to have actual probable cause. Racial disparities in outcomes down. Complaints against police down. And perhaps most surprisingly, crime rates do not increase. Arrests for actual crimes remain stable. The only thing that decreases is biased enforcement. Other cities take notice. Seattle implements similar protocols, then Austin, then Denver. then Philadelphia. By later years, major cities have universal accountability systems inspired by the Harper Protocol. Captain Denise Harper watches these changes from her position at the Pentagon. She has been promoted to Rear Admiral Lower Half, 1 star. She becomes Deputy Commander of Naval Surface Forces Atlantic, overseeing many ships and thousands of sailors. But she also takes on a collateral duty that did not exist before her arrest. Special Advisor to the Secretary of the Navy for Military-Civilian Law Enforcement Coordination. It is not a glamorous job. It is spreadsheets and policy reviews and endless meetings with police chiefs and city managers and legislators. But it matters. She tracks implementation of the Harper Protocol at every installation, reviews incident data regularly, identifies bases with compliance problems, works directly with local police departments on training and coordination. She testifies before state legislatures considering their own versions of service member protection laws. She speaks at police academies explaining why verification protocols make officers' jobs easier and safer, while protecting civil rights. She collects stories from service members whose experiences prove the protocols work, like Lieutenant Commander Jessica Rivera. A Marine Corps pilot pulled over near Camp Pendleton. The officer saw her flight suit, ran a quick verification check through the base, confirmed she was active duty, and sent her on her way with a warning for speeding. Total time, short. No questions about whether the uniform was real. No demands to prove she was actually a pilot. Just professional, respectful law enforcement. Lieutenant Commander Rivera wrote to Admiral Harper, "I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for him to question my rank, to ask if I really fly jets, to treat me like I was lying about who I am. But he just verified through the protocol and moved on like it was normal, like my credentials were worth believing. I've been in the Marines for some time, and that was the first time a civilian cop treated me like I was actually a Marine instead of someone pretending." Or Commander David Kim. A Navy surgeon pulled over near Naval Hospital Bremerton. The officer saw his uniform and medical credentials, verified through both the base and the Washington State Medical Board using the coordination protocol, thanked him for his service, and let him go with a warning. Commander Kim told Admiral Harper, "I am older now. I have been stopped by police several times in my life while Asian American. Most of those times I was treated like a suspect, questioned extensively, had my credentials doubted. This was the first time the officer just verified and trusted the system. The difference is the protocol, the accountability. It works. Admiral Harper keeps these letters in a folder labeled Why It Matters. When she is frustrated by bureaucratic resistance, when another police union fights reforms, when progress feels impossibly slow, she reads the letters, reminds herself that every protocol implemented, every officer trained, every verification completed represents a service member who did not get handcuffed on the side of the road. That is worth the boring spreadsheet work. That is worth the endless meetings. That is worth fighting for." Several years after the incident, the landscape has changed in ways that seemed impossible on that evening. The Harper Protocol is active at every military installation in the United States, at overseas bases, and has been adopted in modified form by NATO allies for their own military-civilian coordination. The Service Member Dignity and Protection Act has been law for some time. Compliance is mandatory for any jurisdiction receiving federal law enforcement funding. Not every agency complies perfectly. Some resist. Some implement minimal changes. Some ignore requirements and accept funding cuts rather than change their practices. But overall, the system is dramatically better than it was. Comprehensive data tells the story. Military personnel detained by civilian law enforcement while in uniform or presenting military credentials down significantly from pre-protocol levels. When incidents do occur, Average resolution time is short, down from longer times. Use of force incidents involving uniformed service members down dramatically. Formal complaints of racial profiling during military credential verification down significantly. Those numbers represent real people, real service members who did not experience what Admiral Harper experienced. Phone calls made instead of assumptions acted upon. Verification completed instead of bias indulged. Respect given instead of dignity denied. Admiral Denise Harper is now Vice Admiral Harper. 3 stars. She was promoted, becoming the first black woman to achieve 3-star rank in the Navy's surface warfare community. She serves as Commander of Naval Surface Forces Atlantic. She oversees the entire Atlantic Fleet Surface Force, many ships, thousands of sailors, billions of dollars in assets. She is one of the most senior officers in the United States Navy. And she got there not despite what happened on the road, but in part because of how she responded to it. At her 3-star promotion ceremony, Secretary of the Navy Victoria Chen speaks. Vice Admiral Harper represents everything we want in naval leadership: tactical brilliance, operational excellence, strategic vision, and the moral courage to turn personal injustice into systemic reform that protects thousands of people. Years ago, she was handcuffed on the side of the road. Today, she commands the Atlantic Fleet Surface Force. That is not just a personal triumph. That is proof that when you fight for what is right, when you refuse to accept injustice, when you build systems instead of seeking revenge, the Navy and the nation recognize and reward that leadership. When she pins the 3rd star on Admiral Harper's shoulder boards. Vice Admiral Harper, you did not just earn these stars through your operational record, though that record is exemplary. You earned them by making the Navy better, by protecting service members who come after you, by building accountability systems that make bias harder to hide and harder to practice, by turning one terrible moment into a movement that changed how America treats its military. The audience rises in standing ovation. Hundreds of the people standing are sailors who responded to the incident years ago. They came from across the country, from ships and bases and commands spread across the fleet. They took leave. They bought plane tickets. They traveled to Washington, D.C., because years ago, their captain needed them and they responded. Today, she is being honored for what she built from that moment, and they want to witness it. After the ceremony, Vice Admiral Harper moves through the reception thanking people for attending. She sees Lieutenant Kevin Mitchell, except he is not a lieutenant anymore. "Commander Mitchell," she says, shaking his hand, "congratulations on your promotion and on getting your own ship. How is command treating you?" Commander Mitchell grins. He is commanding the USS Porter now, a guided missile destroyer in the Pacific Fleet. "It is incredible, Admiral. Best job in the Navy. And I'm trying to build the kind of culture you built on the Guardian, where people take care of each other, where loyalty means something real. You are doing it right," she says. "I've heard good things about the Porter. Your crew loves serving under you. That is the measure that matters. Admiral, I wanted to thank you for everything. That phone call I made years ago, I took a huge risk. Could have faced court-martial for unauthorized mobilization. Could have ended my career, but you never let that happen. You protected me when I protected you." Admiral Harper shakes her head. "Commander, you did not need my protection. You did the right thing at the right moment. The Navy recognizes that. Your promotion to commander, your selection for ship command, those happen because you are an exceptional officer, not because I intervened. You earned everything you have." She pauses. "But I am grateful for the call, for the courage it took to make it, for choosing loyalty over caution. That call changed my life, changed thousands of lives. You should be proud of that." Mitchell nods, emotion visible on his face. "Thank you, Admiral. It was an honor to serve with you. And it is an honor to serve in a Navy that you are leading." Across the room, Admiral Harper sees another familiar face. Sergeant Maria Lopez from Norfolk PD. She is in civilian clothes, standing near the back, looking uncertain about whether she belongs here. Admiral Harper walks over. "Sergeant Lopez, thank you for coming." Lopez looks surprised to be acknowledged. "Admiral Harper, I was not sure if I should attend. I know I was part of what happened that night. I should have done more to stop my partner. Should have called a supervisor myself. Should have taken control of the scene when it became clear he was making a terrible mistake." "You suggested verification," Admiral Harper says. "You questioned the stop. That took courage. Not enough courage. Not fast enough. You were already in handcuffs before I found my voice." Admiral Harper studies her for a moment. "What are you doing now, Sergeant Lopez?" "I run the Bias Awareness and Accountability Program for Norfolk PD. I train every new officer on the Harper Protocol. I teach them about verification procedures, about recognizing bias, about speaking up when their partners are wrong. I use the video from that night in every training session." She pauses. "I tell them about watching a Navy captain get arrested and knowing it was wrong, but hesitating too long to stop it. I tell them that hesitation, that failure to intervene when you know something is wrong, is how injustice becomes acceptable. And I make sure they understand that being a good officer means speaking up even when it is uncomfortable, even when it costs you something." Admiral Harper extends her hand. "Thank you for doing that work, Sergeant. For turning that moment into teaching. For making sure the next generation does better." They shake hands. "Admiral, can I ask you something?" Lopez says. "How did you stay so calm when you were being handcuffed, when my partner was refusing to listen, when everything was going wrong? You never raised your voice, never lost your composure. How?" Admiral Harper considers the question. "Years of command taught me that losing control of your emotions means losing control of the situation. I was furious, Sergeant Lopez, absolutely enraged, humiliated. But showing that rage would have given Officer Ellis justification to escalate, would have confirmed his biases about angry black women, would have made everything worse." She pauses. "So I stayed calm, stayed professional, offered verification repeatedly, did everything right, not because I thought it would work with Officer Ellis, but because I knew other people were watching. Lieutenant Mitchell in his car, civilians filming, eventually my crew arriving. I stayed calm for them to show them that dignity does not require rage, that you can stand your ground without losing yourself." She looks directly at Lopez. "But do not mistake calm for acceptance, Sergeant. I was calm in that moment and absolutely relentless in the aftermath. Calm gets you through crisis. Relentless gets you systemic change. You need both." Lopez nods slowly. "That is what I teach now, that there is a difference between staying professional and being passive, between being calm and accepting injustice. You can be calm in the moment and fight like hell afterwards for change." "Exactly," Admiral Harper says. They talk for a few more minutes, then Lopez excuses herself to leave. As she walks away, Admiral Harper thinks about the arc of change. Years ago, Officer Lopez hesitated, did not do enough, watched injustice unfold without stopping it effectively. Today, she is training hundreds of officers to do better, to intervene earlier, to choose verification over assumption, to speak up when something is wrong. That is progress. Not perfect, not complete, but real. Admiral Harper finds Commander Robert Hayes, her former executive officer from the Guardian. He is a captain now, commanding his own squadron. "XO," she says, using his old title affectionately. "Good to see you." Admiral Hayes responds, shaking her hand warmly. Congratulations on the 3rd star, well deserved. The Navy is lucky to have you leading surface forces. How is Squadron Command? Challenging, rewarding. I'm trying to build the same culture we had on the Guardian, where people take care of each other, where showing up when someone needs help is automatic, not exceptional. He grins. I tell every new sailor the story of that night, about the hundreds of us who responded when our captain needed us, about choosing loyalty, about refusing to let injustice stand. That story has become part of the squadron culture now. It defines who we are. Admiral Harper smiles. That night defined who all of us are, XO. Every sailor who responded, every officer who led them, everyone who refused to just watch and do nothing. That was our finest moment. Not because we threatened anyone, but because we showed what military culture can be when it is at its best. She pauses. And now that culture has spread hundreds of commands across the Navy telling that story, using it to teach about loyalty and courage and standing up for what is right. That is the legacy that matters, not the arrest, the response, the culture, the change. Hayes nods. Admiral, we would follow you anywhere. You know that, right? Every sailor who was there that night, every officer who served with you, we would do it again without hesitation. I know, Captain, and that means everything. Officer Brian Ellis, the man who arrested Admiral Harper years ago, has disappeared from public view almost entirely. After his termination from Norfolk PD, he attempted to get hired by police departments in Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. All rejected him after reviewing his personnel file and the viral video. He worked as a mall security guard for some time. Got fired after multiple complaints about profiling shoppers, particularly young black customers who he followed through stores or questioned without cause. He tried executive protection work for wealthy clients. That lasted some time until a client Googled his name, found the video, and immediately terminated the contract. He tried private investigation work, could not get licensed because his termination from Norfolk PD raised red flags with the state licensing board. As of later, he works at an Amazon fulfillment center, makes hourly wage, picks orders, loads trucks, has no contact with law enforcement or with the public. He gave one interview to a podcast about police reform and accountability. The host asked what he had learned in the years since his termination. Ellis spoke quietly, his voice carrying shame and resignation. I made assumptions based on what I expected to see, instead of looking at the evidence in front of me. Captain Harper had valid credentials. She offered verification. She did everything right. And I still arrested her because I could not imagine that someone who looked like her could be who she said she was. That was my bias, my failure, my choice, and it cost me everything. My career, my marriage, my reputation, my future in law enforcement, and all gone because I let racism override evidence. The host asked if he would ever apologize to Admiral Harper. I wrote letters, multiple letters, never sent any of them. What would I say? Sorry I handcuffed you for wearing your own uniform. Sorry I laughed when you offered to verify. Sorry I told you real captains do not look like you. He paused, his voice breaking slightly. She does not need my apology. She needed the system to change, and it did. The Harper Protocol, the federal law, the reforms in dozens of cities. That is real accountability, not me saying sorry, but the entire system being forced to do better because of what I did to her. Admiral Harper was asked about that interview by a reporter. I do not need Officer Ellis' apology, she confirmed. I never did. What I needed was for what happened to me to matter, to create change that protects other service members, to build systems that make it harder for the next Officer Ellis to act on his biases. he lost his career. That is justice. But the real victory is the Harper Protocol preventing thousands of similar incidents. That is systemic change. That is what lasts after viral videos fade. The USS Guardian, Admiral Harper's former command, has become legendary in the fleet. The ship that mobilized hundreds of sailors to the scene. The ship where loyalty means something real. The ship with the unofficial motto painted inside in a dozen places. We do not leave anyone behind. Captain Elise Morgan commands the Guardian now. She inherited extraordinary culture, and she has maintained it. Every change of command ceremony, she tells the story. Every new sailor who reports aboard hears it during their first week. Every junior officer gets reminded that on this ship, we take care of our own. The Guardian has the highest retention rate in the Atlantic Fleet. Sailors request transfer to serve there. The ship consistently wins awards for operational excellence, combat readiness, and crew morale because culture matters. When people know their shipmates will show up when they are needed, when they trust that loyalty is real, and not just a word in the Navy core values, they perform better. They stay longer. They become part of something bigger than themselves. That is Admiral Harper's legacy on that ship. Not just the protocol she implemented or the tactics she taught, the culture she built. The belief she instilled that every person matters and deserves protection. That culture has spread far beyond the Guardian now. It is in every command where sailors who responded that night now serve. It is in every training command where instructors teach the response as a case study, in leadership and military culture. It is in the Naval Academy curriculum where midshipmen study how hundreds of sailors mobilize swiftly without central coordination, moved with perfect discipline, and resolved a crisis without violence. It has become part of what the Navy is, and that might be the most lasting change of all. Years later, Vice Admiral Denise Harper gives the commencement address at the United States Naval Academy. She stands at the podium in her dress whites with 3 stars gleaming on her shoulder boards. Before her sit hundreds of midshipmen about to receive their commissions as ensigns and second lieutenants. They represent every state, every background, every demographic, the future of American naval leadership. She looks at them and thinks about what to say. She could talk about tactics, about operations, about the technical skills they will need to command ships and lead sailors. Instead, she tells them about that evening. Years ago, I was driving home from work. I had been on duty for a long shift. I was exhausted. I was in my service dress blue uniform, the same uniform I'm wearing right now. And I was pulled over by a police officer who looked at me and decided I could not be who I said I was. She walks them through the incident, the skepticism, the refusal to verify, the statement that real captains do not look like her, the handcuffs, the humiliation. I presented valid military identification. I offered multiple ways to verify my credentials. I did everything right, and I was still arrested because Officer Ellis looked at a black woman in a Navy uniform, and his brain could not process that as real. His assumptions were stronger than evidence. The midshipmen sit in absolute silence. Some of you, especially those of you who are women or people of color, will face similar situations. You will present your credentials and see doubt in someone's eyes. You will explain your rank and hear skepticism. You will offer verification and watch people choose assumption over evidence. When that happens, and it will happen, I want you to remember something. Your value is not determined by whether other people recognize it. Your rank is not validated by whether civilians believe you earned it. Your service is not diminished by someone else's bias. She pauses. Stand your ground, offer verification, document incidents, file complaints, demand accountability. Do not accept humiliation as the price of service. You earned the right to wear this uniform. Do not let anyone make you feel like you have to prove that over and over. She looked specifically at the black and brown faces in the graduating class. And for those of you who will not experience this personally, because your appearance matches what people expect officers to look like, you have a different responsibility. When your shipmates get questioned, when their credentials get doubted, when they face bias that you will never face personally, you have a choice. You can stay silent. Assume it is not your problem. Let them fight alone. Or you can be Lieutenant Kevin Mitchell. You can make the phone call. You can show up. You can stand with them. Her voice gets stronger, because here is what I learned on that road. Individual courage matters, but collective action changes systems. One person standing up is brave. Hundreds of people standing together is transformative. Those hundreds of sailors who responded that night didn't know if they would face consequences. They did not know if showing up would help or make things worse. They just knew their captain needed them and they went. No hesitation, no calculation. Just response. That is military culture at its best. That is what these years at the academy have been preparing you for. Not just commanding ships or flying aircraft or leading Marines, but building teams where people take care of each other, where loyalty is lived, not just recited, where standing up for what is right is automatic, not exceptional. She straightens to attention. In a few minutes, you are going to take the oath. You are going to swear to support and defend the Constitution, to bear true faith and allegiance, to well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office you are about to enter. Those are not just words. They are commitments to something bigger than yourself, to principles that matter more than personal comfort, to people who will depend on you to make the right choice when it costs you something. Officer Ellis had a choice on the road. Verify or arrest, evidence or assumption. A moment of dialing a phone or a career-ending mistake. He chose wrong, and he lost everything. You will face similar choices throughout your careers. Not the same situation, but the same fundamental decision. Do the right thing or do the easy thing. Stand up or stay silent. Show up or stay comfortable. Choose right every single time, even when it is hard, even when it costs you something, even when people tell you it is not your problem. Because the culture you build in peacetime determines how your people respond in crisis. If you build a culture where people matter, where dignity is protected, where loyalty is real, then when crisis comes, your people will respond the way my crew responded. Immediately, completely, without reservation. She renders a salute to the graduating class. Congratulations, ensigns and second lieutenants. Welcome to the profession of arms. Serve with honor. Lead with courage. Build cultures worth defending and never, ever leave your people behind. The midshipmen erupt in applause. Many are crying because they just heard a 3-star admiral tell them that fighting for dignity is as important as fighting world wars. That standing up for each other matters as much as tactical excellence. That the person who shows up when someone needs help might change history. After the ceremony at the reception on the yard, midshipmen approach Admiral Harper to thank her. A young black woman, newly commissioned Ensign Maya Johnson, speaks with tears in her eyes. Admiral Harper, thank you. My mom told me stories about being questioned while she was in the Air Force, about people assuming her uniform was fake, about having to prove herself constantly. I was scared that would happen to me, but hearing your story, seeing what you built from that moment, knowing the Harper Protocol exists because you refuse to let it go, that gives me hope. Admiral Harper takes her hand. Ensign Johnson, You earned that commission. You earned the right to wear that uniform. Do not let anyone make you question that. And if someone does question you, use the protocol. Verify through official channels. Document what happened. Report it. The system is better now than it was years ago because people refuse to stay silent. Keep that progress going. Another midshipman, a white male ensign named David Martinez, approaches. Admiral, your speech really impacted me. I have never had to think about having my credentials questioned because of how I look, but hearing you describe what that feels like, understanding that my classmates will face challenges I will not, that opened my eyes. I want to be the kind of officer who shows up for my people the way your crew showed up for you. Then be that officer, Ensign Martinez. Do not just sympathize when you see bias. Intervene. Speak up. Use your privilege and your position to protect people who need allies. That is how we build a Navy where everyone is valued and everyone belongs. The conversations continue for hours. Midshipmen sharing their own stories of experiencing or witnessing bias, asking advice about how to handle difficult situations, promising to build the kind of culture Admiral Harper described. She stays until the last midshipman leaves, answering every question, giving every bit of encouragement and wisdom she can offer. Because these young officers are the future. They are the ones who will either maintain the progress that has been made or let it slip away. She wants them to understand what is at stake. Later that evening, back in her quarters at the Naval Academy, Admiral Harper sits alone reviewing the day. Years since the incident. Years since she stood in handcuffs, wondering if her career would survive the humiliation. Now she is a 3-star admiral, one of the most senior officers in the Navy, commanding the Atlantic Fleet Surface Force, shaping policy at the highest levels. The journey from that moment to this one has been exhausting. Testifying before Congress, working with police departments, implementing protocols, tracking data, fighting resistance, maintaining pressure even when people wanted to move on to the next issue. But it was worth it. The Harper Protocol has prevented thousands of service members from experiencing what she experienced. The Service Member Dignity and Protection Act has created accountability where none existed before. Police departments have changed their training, their policies, their culture. Data transparency has made bias harder to hide and harder to practice. And perhaps most importantly, the conversation has changed. Years ago, when service members of color talked about being profiled while in uniform, many people did not believe them, dismissed their experiences, told them they were being too sensitive. Now those experiences are documented, measured, taken seriously. The culture has shifted from denial to acknowledgement, from dismissal to action, from individual complaints to systemic reform. That is progress, real, measurable, lasting progress. Admiral Harper picks up her phone, scrolls through messages from sailors thanking her for the protocol, from officers sharing stories of being treated with respect during traffic stops, from families saying they feel safer knowing the protections exist. She saves every message, keeps them organized by date and theme. These are the moments that matter, not the headlines, not the awards, not the promotions. The individual lives changed, the indignities prevented, the respect given where it was previously denied. That is the mission. That is the purpose. That is why she fought. She thinks about Officer Brian Ellis working in an Amazon warehouse, about how different his life would be if he just made a phone call that night, if he had chosen the verification over assumption, if he had let evidence override bias. One decision changed both their lives forever. She does not take pleasure in his downfall, does not celebrate his suffering, but she does not regret the consequences either. Actions have outcomes. Bias has costs. He learned that the hardest way possible, and thousands of other officers learn from his example without having to make the same mistake. That is how systems change, through visible consequences that make everyone else think twice before repeating the behavior. Admiral Harper stands, walks to her window, looks out at the Naval Academy grounds where hundreds of new officers just began their careers. Some of them will face bias, will be questioned, will have their credentials doubted. But they will face it with better protections than she had, with protocols that require verification, with systems that document and track incidents, with accountability mechanisms that create consequences for discrimination. They will face it with the knowledge that someone before them fought for change and won. And maybe, just maybe, some of them will not have to face it at all because the culture has shifted enough that people actually respect military credentials regardless of who is wearing them. That is the goal. That is the vision. That is what all the work has been building toward. A military where service is respected, where credentials matter more than appearance, where dignity is protected as fiercely as any tactical objective. She is not there yet. The work is not finished. But she is closer than she was years ago when she stood in handcuffs on the road. And she is not stopping until the work is done. If you have made it this far, thank you for listening to this story. This is not just about one arrest. It is about what happens when people decide that dignity is non-negotiable. Hundreds of sailors did not arrive with weapons. They did not make threats. They did not break a single law. They just stood there, silent, disciplined, a visible reminder that when you attack one of them, you face all of them. That is solidarity. That is what military culture can be at its best. That is what happens when people refuse to let injustice stand unchallenged. Officer Brian Ellis thought he was arresting one woman for wearing a fake uniform. He was actually taking on the entire United States Navy. Bad calculation. But here is what matters more than his mistake. What matters is what happened next. Lieutenant Kevin Mitchell did not just watch. He made a phone call that mobilized hundreds of sailors swiftly. Hundreds of sailors did not just sympathize. They got in vehicles and drove to the scene with perfect discipline. Captain Denise Harper, now Vice Admiral Harper, did not just file a complaint and move on. She testified before Congress. She worked with police departments. She built protocols that protected thousands of service members who came after her. Sergeant Maria Lopez did not just feel guilty about hesitating. She changed her career focus to training officers on bias awareness and intervention. That is how systems change, not through one viral video, not through one termination, but through sustained effort by people who refuse to let the moment pass without meaning. The Harper Protocol exists at many military installations. The Service Member Dignity and Protection Act is federal law. Many cities have implemented comprehensive accountability systems modeled on the reforms. Racial disparities in traffic stop outcomes have dropped significantly in jurisdictions with strong protocols. Service members of color report feeling safer, more respected, more valued when interacting with civilian law enforcement. Those changes did not happen automatically. They happened because people fought for them, testified for them, implemented them, enforced them, refused to let bureaucratic resistance kill them. Vice Admiral Denise Harper earned 3 stars because she turned humiliation into reform. Because she built systems instead of seeking revenge. Because she fought for everyone who comes after her. Officer Ellis lost his career because he let bias override evidence. Because he refused to spend a moment verifying. Because he made assumptions based on appearance instead of examining credentials. The difference between them is not just what happened in one moment on the road. It is what they chose to do with that moment afterwards. One person let it define him, let it end his career, let it become his entire legacy. The other person refused to let it define her, used it to build something bigger. Turned it into a legacy that protects thousands. Your choices matter. What you do when you face injustice matters. Whether you stay silent or speak up. Whether you watch or show up. Whether you accept systems as they are or fight to make them better. Lieutenant Mitchell had a moment to decide whether to make that phone call. He chose to call. Hundreds of sailors had time to decide whether to respond. They chose to show up. You have a lifetime of moments where you will face similar choices. Someone will be treated unfairly. Someone will need support. Someone will be standing alone against bias. You can assume someone else will handle it. You can stay comfortable. You can protect yourself from risk. Or you can be the person who makes the call, who shows up, who refuses to let indignity stand unchallenged. Build that habit. Make it who you are. Choose to respond every single time. Because culture is not built in crisis. It is built through many small decisions every day. How you treat people, whether you speak up when you see wrong, whether you show up when someone needs help, and when crisis comes, the culture you build determines how people respond. Vice Admiral Harper built a culture on the USS Guardian where loyalty was real, where people mattered, where showing up for each other was automatic. And when she needed them, hundreds of sailors responded swiftly, with perfect discipline. That is not luck. That is culture. That is leadership. That is the result of years of decisions about how to treat people and what values to prioritize. Build that culture wherever you serve, in your workplace, in your community, in your family, in your relationships. Take care of people. Show up when they need you. Stand up when you see injustice. Make the call even when it is risky. Do that consistently, and when crisis comes, people will respond the way the USS Guardian's crew responded. Immediately, completely, without reservation. Subscribe for more stories about courage, justice, and the power of standing together. Comment where you are watching from. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, you do not need hundreds of people to do the right thing, but it sure helps to know they will show up if you need them. That is what the Navy taught Vice Admiral Harper. That is what hundreds of sailors proved on that road. That is what the Harper Protocol protects. We do not leave our people behind, ever. That is not just a military principle. That is a human principle. When someone needs you, you go. When you see injustice, you fight it. When you have the power to change systems, you use it. That is how progress happens. Not through perfect people, not through one heroic moment, but through ordinary people making extraordinary choices when it matters. Lieutenant Mitchell was a junior officer. He made a phone call, changed history. You have that same power. Maybe not to mobilize hundreds of people, but to show up for one person, to speak up in one meeting, to file one complaint, to make one call. Small actions compound. One person's courage inspires another. One policy change makes the next one easier. One incident of accountability makes the next one more likely. Vice Admiral Harper did not change the Navy by herself. She did it by inspiring thousands of people to make better choices, to build better systems, to hold each other accountable. You can do the same in your sphere, with your influence, through your choices. Do not wait for someone else to fix it. Do not assume the system will work on its own. Do not let fear of consequences stop you from doing right. Be the person who makes the call. Be the person who shows up. Be the person who refuses to let injustice stand unchallenged. Build cultures worth defending. Fight for systems that protect everyone. Stand up. Show up. Speak up. That is how change happens. That is how Vice Admiral Denise Harper went from handcuffs to 3 stars. That is how hundreds of sailors became a movement. That is how one phone call changed federal law. And that is how you can change the world around you. One decision at a time. One moment of courage at a time. One refusal to accept injustice at a time. The work continues. The fight is not over. But every day the system gets a little better because people refuse to let it stay the same. Be part of that change. Make the call. Show up. Fight for what is right. And never ever leave your people behind. In the end, the most powerful lesson from that unforgettable evening on a Virginia roadside is this: true strength is never shown by how loudly you shout or how fiercely you fight back in the moment. It is revealed in what you choose to build after the handcuffs come off. Captain Denise Harper could have let bitterness consume her. She could have accepted the humiliation as just another unfair chapter in her remarkable career. Instead, she turned one painful, deeply personal injustice into a force that protected thousands. With calm dignity in the storm and relentless determination afterward, she transformed a moment of bias and broken trust into lasting change. The Harper Protocol, federal legislation, reformed police practices, and a renewed culture of respect for every service member who wears the uniform. Her story reminds us that real leadership isn't about never falling down. It's about refusing to stay silent once you rise. It's about choosing to protect those who come after you, even when the wound is still fresh. Loyalty, courage, and quiet resolve can move hundreds of hearts and reshape entire systems. Never underestimate the power of one person who decides that dignity is non-negotiable. If Captain Harper's journey touched something deep inside you, if it made you think about the times you stayed silent, the times you spoke up, or the times you wished someone had shown up for you, drop a comment below and tell me, what is one small act of courage you can commit to this week to stand up for someone who needs it? Where are you watching from today? Let's keep this conversation going in the comments. And if stories like this, stories of resilience, justice, and the quiet power of doing what's right, light a fire in your soul, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Together, we can celebrate the kind of courage that doesn't just change one life, but changes the world around us. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.